Kiaora!
Hello,
Good day.
we are going to present you New Zealand and its culture. First, we can talk about the geography. So, New Zealand is an island country located in the southwestern Pacific Ocean, near the center of the water hemisphere. It consists of a large number of islands, estimated around 600, mainly remains of a larger landmass now beneath the sea. The two main islands by size are the North Island and the South Island, and the capital is located on the North Island, and it's called Wellington. The current population of New Zealand is about 5 million. So, about the history, the first people to arrive in New Zealand were faut passer par contre la diapo, hein, ce serait mieux. Maxime, oui. Ouais.
Bon, bah.
Ouais, je couperai au montage.
Okay. The first people to arrive in New Zealand were ancestors of the Maori. The first settlers probably arrived from Polynesia between 1200 and 1300 AD. They discovered New Zealand as they explored the Pacific, navigating by the ocean currents. The first European to arrive in New Zealand was the Dutch explorer Appel in 1642. The name of New Zealand comes from the Dutch New Zealand, the name first given to us by a Dutch mapmaker. By the 1830s, the British government was being pressured to reduce lawlessness in the country and to settle here before the French, who were considering New Zealand as the potential colony. In 1854, New Zealand's first parliament, established by the British Parliament through the New Zealand Constitution Act of 1852, led the country to partial self-government, and by the end of the century, it would be fully self-governing. And finally, New Zealand became an independent dominion in 1907. Now we'll deal with the religion. Christianity is New Zealand's largest religion with 55.6% nationwide Christians, and 34% of the population say they have no religion.
Okay, so now we will talk about the culture. The Maoris are the original indigenous group that inhabited New Zealand. Long story short, the Europeans made an agreement with the Maori. It is called the Treaty of Waitangi, and now they live in peace. And there are plenty of places in New Zealand where you can learn about their language, history, and culture. New Zealand has become a culturally diverse country, particularly from the 1980s. A wide range of ethnic groups have been encouraged to settle, and New Zealand is very multicultural since, although that has changed a bit in recent years. According to data from 2013 national consensus, 25% of people living in New Zealand were born abroad, 50% are Maori, and 12% are Asian. And over 7% are from Pacific Island nations. Hindi is the fourth most common language in New Zealand, after English, Maori, and Samoan. Now we'll talk about the political culture of New Zealand. So it has changed slowly over time, and is known to be a country where the evolution is very slow. Since the settlers came from Great Britain, New Zealand has a tradition of following the UK when it goes into wars. Concerning the values, we can find democracy, fairness, equality, honesty, and protection by the government. The people of New Zealand is not really patriot, but this is not when it comes to sports, where they're really patriots in that case. The country likes to think itself as a leader of the world, and that is why it is very reformatory. So it was the first nation to give women the right to vote and was one of the first to develop welfare system in the 1930s. In terms of politics, people often vote based on political values more than precise ideas. And their main symbol is the kiwi, which is a small animal that represents the country's small size and adaptability. That is compared to bigger countries that are considered as arrogant. Now we'll talk about business.
So for business related elements, so in New Zealand, employees have a can-do attitude, meaning that they always try to solve problems that seems hard to solve. Business and organization are small in this country. The average number of employees is 14 against 33 in France or 25 in the USA. So the smaller scale of businesses makes it easier to be noticed and to have an influence on things. In a New Zealander company, you have to be versatile due to their scale. Employees in New Zealand work independently, but teamwork is very important. Kiwis socialize a lot at work, and many workplaces have a relaxed almost family atmosphere. Managers are respected, but part of the team. Hierarchies are much less important in Kiwi's workplace than elsewhere. So some tips to know. Firstly, public transport are not very good in New Zealand. Internet is bad and not reliable outside of cities. You need to respect the environment and to respect Maori's culture. It's very important in New Zealand. And also, you don't have you need not to compare it with Australia. They don't like it a lot.
So now concerning the communication strategy, New Zealand is known across the advertising landscape as the small country with big ideas. So most agencies are based in Auckland rather than in the New Zealand capital, Wellington. And on the question of what draws international talent to the market from a production perspective, New Zealand is certainly an accessible land for creative ADs and directors. So indeed, with English and Maori, the main languages, creating truly cultural appropriate strategies for clients is deeply important, and particularly for those involved in creating and producing adverts. Everyone has a duty to be understanding and respectful to the Maori cultural values, as we said, and particularly as an immigrant. And diversity is an issue with advertising being the domain of white males mostly. So according to the Nielsen and the Ad Intel rate card, between July 2017 and June 2018, the 5 biggest ad sponsor in New Zealand were supermarkets, followed by department stores, passenger vehicles, and fast food chains. And Australia is still New Zealand's largest trading partner with annual reports of 13 New Zealand billion, followed by China. And other important trading partners include the European Union and USA and Japan. So there is a big example of a worldwide brand that adapted its communication strategy for New Zealand, and it was the Mark Cooper campaign that was created last year by a company in New Zealand for Burger King. So they designed it in part to draw attention to the World Peace Day in New Zealand with the Mark Cooper campaign which invited McDonald's to put its difference with Burger King aside for one day to create the perfect burger. And when Macca's declined the invitation, public support for Burger King went wild, and they earned media of 220 millions in a matter of days. So the Burger Wars ceasefire made global headline and scooped 2 grand prize at Cannes in 2016. So Burger King was honored at Cannes Lions as Marketer of the Year. So very impressive one.
So to conclude, we can say that Kiwis are very open-minded, but there are still some rules to respect to be part of this big culture. And doing business in New Zealand can have a lot of benefits.
Goodbye.
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 Goodbye.